One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to krystalproffitt.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's krystalproffitt.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to krystalproffitt.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to krystalproffitt.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode. Y'all, nothing excites me more than talking about podcasting. I've had some people tell me, like, Krystal, you really light up when you talk about it. So that's how I know that you're totally into this podcasting stuff. And it just makes me laugh, and it makes me a little embarrassed. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, they think I'm a total nerd. I'm the biggest dork alive who is obsessed with podcasting. But it's true. And that is what, it's just the thing that lights me up so much. And I wanted to let you know that Proffitt Podcasting is going to be opening again for the last time in 2019 at the end of November. So if you want to be around this energy, I can't even tell you how much I get excited every single day. I hit the ground and I just think, I'm so blessed to talk about podcasting and teach other people about podcasting. If you want some of that energy, then I encourage you to join the waitlist for Proffitt Podcasting. You can find all the information and what the course is all about at proffittpodcasting.com. And I encourage you to join the waitlist because this is going to be the last time the doors open in 2019. And I encourage you to grab your spot because this is it, guys, for 2019. So I want you to jump in. We have so many fun things in store. And if starting a podcast in 2020 is on your to-do list, you need to be in Proffitt Podcasting. So join the waitlist and I will see you there. Y'all, this is episode 100, and I'm having one of those pinch me moments, and that's actually the first time I've ever said pinch right in my life. I always say pinch. Oh my gosh, and my husband always makes fun of me because he's like, no, it's pinch, not pinch. So that's really funny. I guess I did that just for this episode, and now I totally botched it. Anyway, this is episode 100 of the Proffitt Podcast. And I've been thinking for weeks now, what can I do that is special for 100 episodes? So what I've done is I am going to share with you today a coaching call that I recently did with one of my students because it was so much fun. And I thought maybe I want to see some of the behind the scenes of what goes on whenever I do some one-on-one coaching. And maybe she has some of the same questions that you do. And I hope that this is helpful. And let me know if you like this kind of episode, because I love these conversations that I get to have with all of you wonderful people in this community. But this was a super special episode, and I'm just so excited to share it with you for episode 100. So let's get right to it. Welcome to the Proffitt Podcast, where we teach entrepreneurs how to start, launch, and market their podcast. I'm your host, Krystal Proffitt, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Because if you've been thinking about creating a podcast for a while, well, I'm so glad you found this show. Think of this as the shortcut / time-saving version of searching Google and YouTube for hours and hours trying to figure out the world of podcasting. Trust me, as a busy mama of 3, I get it. You don't have a lot of time to be spent or wasted, I should say, searching the web, trying to find all the right ideas and all the amazing things that are out there, and you just end up overwhelmed. Trust me, I've been there, done that, took home the souvenir. But this podcast is going to help you in practical ways because twice a week we'll be delivering episodes that are going to give you steps to help you create a podcast your audience can't wait to listen to. So let's get right to it, shall we? So, like I said in the beginning, this is a special episode where I'm sharing one of my recent coaching calls with one of my students that are in Proffitt Podcasting, and her name is Suzanne Bazarko, and she has the Feelings Fitness podcast. Oh my gosh, we had such a fun conversation, and I'm so excited to say, as of me recording this episode, she has already launched her podcast, and she has put so many of these amazing things that we talked about into action, and I cannot wait to see what kind of results that she has with her podcast because she's on a really cool journey. Her podcast is all about yoga and mindfulness, and I'm just so excited to share with you some of the thoughts and ideas and strategies that we discussed on our coaching call. And let me know what y'all think about this. So here is my call with Suzanne. Okay, so the way I have this set up is, so I wanted to just talk more instead of just like, okay, let's dive into everything that you said in your survey. I want to know particularly, so I have your why, which is you want to educate people about the importance of yoga and mindfulness, and you want to reach more people than just the people that are coming into your yoga studio.
Correct.
Yes. So tell me more about that.
So I come from a teaching background. So I taught first and second grade. That was my career right out of college.
Okay.
And I never in a million years saw myself in the position that I'm in. I mean, honestly, if we hadn't moved from California, I probably would have stayed teaching forever just because I was situated in such a great school and I loved what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And, we obviously ended up moving because we wanted to get back to the Chicago area. And I ended up going back to school instead of getting a teaching job when we moved to Chicago. I ended up going back and getting my master's in school and community counseling. And so then I had my teaching background with kind of grade school kids and then the counseling piece. And then after I had kids, I stayed home with my kids. I mean, I still kind of am. They're in school now, but trying to figure out what to do. But so then in that interim time when I was home, but not wanting to go back to work, figuring out what I was going to do, I ended up doing a yoga teacher training.
Okay.
And so there was that. And then in between of all this, I did voiceover training and all that kind of thing. So all of a sudden I feel like all these little pieces have kind of come together and to create this podcast idea based on a project I did in my counseling program. And so now it's like, now I have, instead of being in a school district, in a classroom, working with families in that capacity, I have families and kids coming in and taking yoga with me.
Okay.
And right now it's just my home studio. It's nothing, and I'm getting out into schools. But like my big idea, my big kind of epiphany on this kind of almost kind of recently was wanting to use so I'm reaching out to schools to get in and do yoga in the schools. And what I wanted from the podcast is almost something that these families of the kids that I'm working with can listen to and better understand what this thing is. Because a lot of them, I mean, it's become I graduated from my counseling program about 10 years ago now, or almost 10 years. And when I was just starting to do this kind of stuff in the schools, it wasn't super mainstream. And it was, and now there's so much research backing the benefits of yoga and mindfulness for the kids. But I feel like the kids are open to it, and some of the parents still are super like, why, what are the benefits? Why are you doing this? Like, some have, religious reservations about the whole thing. So I just thought, like, with this, I'm like, okay, it took me a while to come to that, where it was, who exactly am I talking to? And then I'm like, you know what, this could really be a really nice bridge between what I do with kids in the schools, or even kids like just in my studio space. And so the parents can better understand it too, because I do have some of the parents that do come in and take classes with me, but some of them are like, I think it's great for my kids, but I don't really do it. And I'm like, well, why wouldn't you? Why is it so good for them, but you don't want to do that? So I thought this just would be a good space to bridge that, like what I do in the studio, to the people, just like a little more information. So that's kind of my,
Well, I love to hear, first of all, I think that I'm such a believer in, like, you're exactly where you need to be, like, on your journey. Cause I've had a very similar journey of like working and then staying at home and then trying to work again and then like doing all these other things. And but you can totally see where everything all of a sudden melds together, and you're like, whoa, okay, like there's something here. So I think where I see a podcast playing a great role in your business is it's almost like that little validation factor. So if you were to say, you wanted to put on workshops for kids, or, you wanted to do like YMCA stuff, or, anything like that, it's kind of like, instead of you just walking in there and saying, hey, I'm a yoga teacher and I've kind of been doing this for a while, it's like, oh yeah, I have a podcast. You can go listen to the episodes about how this is good for your body and how it can help you. And then even debunking some of those things that you're talking about, like the religious reservations, like all of that stuff. I think, so I see it as like a very strong educational component for you to tell people, this is how it can help you and all those other things.
Right. Yeah. And I will say, I just kind of had the epiphany where it was, because I knew kind of what I wanted to do with it. I knew what I wanted to talk about, but I was struggling with that audience.
Right.
I'm like, who exactly am I talking to? Because I'm like, am I talking to moms? Am I talking to the parents? Who exactly am I talking to? And it's really, and a piece of me is like, well, I'm kind of talking to the kids.
Right.
But they're not the ones listening to it. Although I will say, one of my girlfriends, who her daughter would come in, they have since moved, but she would come in and take classes with me. And so this friend of mine, she was like, oh, we listened to your trailer. And she's like, the kids listen to it and they want one for them. They want a podcast for them. I'm like, that is so, I would love something like that, where it is speaking to them. But that's for like a little further down the road, I suppose.
But I mean, I think that that's one of those ideas that I don't know if you're anything like me, but I use Google Docs, like everything's in Google Docs. So I have so many, like if I get an idea, like I will open up a fresh Google Doc, I'll type it out on my phone. But I think that that's a great idea because that is, who knows, like for an entire month, you could say, okay, this is, maybe like a month that's centered around kids. It could say, okay, I asked 20 different kids what their favorite thing was about this. And now, you could interview them, you could interview the parents of the kids. So there's so many different ways. So definitely don't write something off as like, oh, I'm not ready for that, because then you may never do it. Just say, no, I'm going to put a pin in that, because I think that that's a fantastic idea.
Well, I think what you're saying makes sense. It's like, in my mind, I'm thinking like a whole separate thing, but it's like, it really could be very easily woven in at this time to what I'm already doing. So
I would try to think of everything that you're doing as one podcast, like, cause I know how it is when if you're anything like me and you have like multiple, like, oh my, I can't even tell you how many Google Docs I have with just random ideas that I'm like, oh, I could try this. At one point I told my husband I was going to have a coffee and cinnamon roll food truck. And he was like,
there you go.
What are you talking about? We are not doing that. It's like, just all the ideas, but I think that that's fantastic to really understand where your people, like, first of all, identifying exactly who you're talking to. It can always change over time. Maybe you want to go even the more like corporate route one day. You want to just go and do these workshops for corporate facilities. I don't know, but I think that starting with one person in particular, maybe even one of your friends, like thinking about that one mom, that one person that you really want to reach out to, and all of your messaging is focused on, this is the only person I'm talking to. Like everybody else, cool if they listen, but just this one person, because then that'll help you get clearer in everything that you're doing.
Yeah.
Being a woman in business comes with its own unique set of challenges, but also so many opportunities. We get ahead by leaning in to what makes us different from business as usual. I'm Samantha Hartley, host of Profitable Joyful Consulting, inviting you to a special 6-episode series exploring the experience of being a woman in business. You want to hear from women consultants who've hit $1 million, who sell 6-figure engagements, or who've broken their own revenue ceilings? Yeah, those are my clients, and they'll be sharing too. Join me for 6 must-listen episodes that tackle key challenges for women consultants. Follow Profitable Joyful Consulting on your favorite podcast app.
I mean, do you think it's, workable to say it's like a family where it's like, you're not, because I feel like this is more, it is, it's like you're trying to say who your kind of ICA is, like you're one person that you're speaking to. And it's like, I kind of see, all along with this thing, it's like, I see the family unit where it's like, cause I do feel like to some extent, it's all this stuff is helpful. I've actually had some like dads that like, they come to me and they say things, even with like my little trailer, they're like, oh, I'm like, I didn't even know you were listening. Like that is really funny, but this can help you too. So it's kind of like, I know you kind of have to pick that one person, but in a sense, I'm seeing like that family unit, I guess, but I don't know.
Well, if that's the case, then honestly, I would ask maybe some people that are already in your circle, in your community, ask them if they listen to podcasts with their kids. I don't, only because I always listen to stuff that's business related or stuff that my kids have no interest in. But if it was something that, a mother and a daughter were super into yoga and they, or they wanted to know more about it, ask them if they would listen to it together, because then I think that that's where you're going to get that answer. Who exactly should I be talking to?
Because I think with that too, it's like if I am incorporating kids into it, it has to be short.
Right.
And
That's
their
what I was going to say.
spans, and rightfully so, are pretty short. So it's kind of that like 15, 20 minutes.
Yep. I think
And
that's
I mean,
great.
yeah. So I guess it would have to be, I would almost have specific ones that are geared towards, like, if you're listening with your kids, like, even if I said, oh, the first Tuesday of every month is going to be an episode dedicated towards like the family. So listen to it with your family, with your, significant other, with your kids, with your dog, with your whatever, you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, I think that's a great idea.
So maybe something like that where I can kind of parse it out a little bit. So yeah, I don't know.
No, I like it. I like it. Well, this actually ties into, so I'm going to go into your areas of concern because I wanted to know more about this because you mentioned the personal privacy and the vulnerability of sharing your personal stories. So tell me more about that.
Okay. All right. So I don't know why this bothers me so much, but I definitely was like a later adopter of like Facebook and Instagram and like any of the social media kind of stuff. Not like late, but I mean later. And so I don't know, I feel like a little bit of my hesitation with podcasting, yes, and then kind of online business stuff too, just in the sense that it's like, it's so easy to know too much about people.
Right.
It's like, Google me, like even my, even like my Feelings Fitness name, it's like, it took me a long time to even use like my name attached to it because I was like, well, then they could just like Google me and they know where I live and I have kids and they're cute and like, what it, you know what I mean? I get like creeped out by creepers.
Right. For sure. Well, and I 100% understand that. And I understand that's why I wanted to know if this was like, because I immediately thought of, and this was an exercise I learned earlier this year. So I'm going to write this in your action items because this is something that I want you to do that will help you add some of your personality while still keeping the privacy aspect of it. So I'm going to write this real fast and I'm going to tell you about it. So I want you, this is a challenge.
Okay. Yes.
I want you to come up with 10 stories. And I know that sounds like a lot, but if you sit down, I'm sure, take the weekend and do it, but 10 stories of your personal journey with yoga and mindfulness.
Okay.
So, because that shows your vulnerability. So I can tell you right now, I have not taken yoga classes in a studio. I bought a DVD at Barnes & Noble and like the 20% off section forever ago when I first started staying at home. So that's my extent of yoga classes. I've done it in my house, but I can tell you from someone that does not teach it, does not practice it regularly, the transformation for me was I would do the yoga stretches just to get to the meditation. And I could talk about like so much of it just on the, I have 3 kids and, it's like being relatable as a mom, but I'm not telling you their birthdays, where we live, like all that stuff. It's just like the fact that I'm a mom and I struggled for a long time with overwhelm. And it wasn't until I started kind of tapping into that meditation practice and just breathing and like being aware of my body. And I will never forget laying on the floor. I was in my living room. The baby was napping. I was on the floor. And the lady that was doing the meditation, she was like, okay, relax the muscles on your face. And I was like, oh, I just never realized how tense everything was in my body until, so that's a way I would encourage you like to think of those first few times when you started yoga. Like, so you've been doing it for a long time now. So a lot of this, you don't even think about it. It's second nature. But think back to those, like, the first time you did a yoga class. I don't know if you've ever done like in-person ones, but you're like tapping into I know what it's like to want to stay at the back of the room and hope no one notices you.
I'm a teacher and I still go to the back of the room. I'm like, I don't want to.
But that's great. Like that's something that's sharing a vulnerability without being personal. Like you're not sharing anything that's about, how you met your husband and all this other stuff. You're just like, I still want to crawl out of my skin when, someone comes up to me and I'm in this mindful state and like all this stuff. So that would be my challenge is to think of some personal journeys. And then you don't have to keep coming up and share. I don't know if you listen to my podcast or what I talk about, but I kind of share the same stories over and over again because, like I said, I was challenged with this practice. So it's kind of like your core personal stories that share your personality, and it lets your audience really get to know you. But I'm not airing out my dirty laundry on my podcast, right?
I'm kind of keeping it focused on the purpose of the podcast, but interweaving. So
Okay, guys. So what'd y'all think about it? Did you like that? Do you want me to do more of these coaching calls and share them with you? Because this was a lot of fun. I really appreciate Suzanne's honest questions and just her ability to really think about how she wants to use her podcast to really impact other people and help them learn more about yoga and be more connected with their bodies and use it as just an overall healthy practice that you can have in your life. Because I know I've done yoga. I've actually would love to take classes in a yoga studio, and I've never done that. I've had a DVD that I bought at Barnes & Noble several years ago, and I've had several people tell me, you need to get into a yoga studio and do it because it's amazing. And so Suzanne's episode just kind of pushed me, like I'm going to be looking for somewhere where I can practice yoga. But I hope that you enjoyed this episode today. So if this is your first time tuning in, I'd love for you to subscribe and listen for the next few episodes. We're going to have some awesome things coming up over the next few weeks. And I actually have a training that's coming in the beginning of December that's going to be all about how to fill the first 5 months of your podcast calendar in 2020. So be on the lookout for that masterclass registration because it's going to be coming out in the next few weeks and you do not want to miss it. It's going to be jam-packed full of ideas and strategies that you can implement going into 2020. So check out the show notes for this episode at krystalproffitt.com/episode 100. I still cannot believe we have done 100 episodes. It is so much fun. Make sure you go and subscribe to Suzanne's podcast as well. It's the Feelings Fitness Podcast, and there's going to be a link to it in the show notes, so be sure to check that out. And I encourage you, if you have not left this podcast a rating or a review, would you go do that for me? Because that really helps me continue to create content just like this, and it helps get this podcast out into more people's line of sight. It helps them see this podcast, and my hope is that someone out there who needs to learn how to start, launch, and market their podcast will find this podcast and think, man, where has this been all my life? Where has Krystal's quirkiness and all of her silly stories and her recording in her closet and just all the fun things? I want them to say, where has this podcast been all of my life? So if you could go to wherever you're listening to this episode and leave us a rating and review, I would so appreciate it. And if you haven't already, make sure that you sign up for the free 5-day Create Your Podcast Bootcamp. There's so many awesome strategies that are in there. And like I said, it is 100% free. And make sure to check out the show notes at krystalproffitt.com/episode 100. And as always, remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere. Hey, Proffitt Podcast listeners. Thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you, and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. Go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, send Krystal a text message. And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal. It could be totally anonymous. Or if you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, send Krystal a text message. And I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of fan mail shout outs.